As if things with the Chicago Bulls couldn't get any worse, well, they did. According to Joe Cowley, the cracks in the locker room are starting to show with the Chicago Bulls, and Coby White is the player that's trying to show leadership and keep the team together. We're going to talk a little bit about that and those reports. We're going to be breaking down the brutal reality facing this team, from roster construction to draft decisions to the decisions on the future of Kobe, Giddey, Ayo Dosunmu, everybody on this roster. We're going to stop pretending. We're going to get right into it right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Derik Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And listen, I think I'm on like day 7 or 8 of not wearing Chicago Bulls gear. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it's a little bit weird for me, right? But nonetheless, I feel like you have to protest in your own way. For some people, that protest is not watching games. For some people, that protest is not, not showing up to Bulls games and buying tickets. For me, is considering I am the drip god when it comes to Chicago Bulls drip. I don't feel it. I don't feel like I can represent something where I'm fighting harder than I feel like the players on the court are fighting, right? That's just my personal thing for it. But let's get back into this, right? The Bulls right now are currently searching for some light at the end of the tunnel. They sit down with this long extended break with NBA Cup play and the elimination rounds starting and things like that. They are now focused on, hopefully trying to find some things that can help them over that. Like the Bulls lost their 7th game in a row to the Golden State Warriors. We've talked about that, right? We're 23 games into the 2025-26 season. And technically, things shouldn't be done. There still should be more than enough time for things to turn around for this basketball team. But they have to now use this break to really kind of discover themselves. And, we got some word from Joe Cowley in regards to like some things going on with this team now in the locker room that we'll talk a little bit about. But first, I want to talk about this break and what this represents for the Chicago Bulls, right? They need this break right now. This is the longest losing streak that the Chicago Bulls have had since the Jim Boylen era. Now, one of the things with that is that part of that losing that happened that season did get us to the place of changing the front office. It's part of the reason why John Paxson and Gar Forman are no longer in power here, even though Pax is still on payroll, right? That's one of the things here that you have to evaluate. And it goes back to show kind of the different standard of this team. Like the last time we had a losing streak this bad, things changed. Now, I do think the catalyst of that change wasn't just the losing streak. It was Paxson going to ownership and admitting, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not quite sure that in this new era of the NBA, I can get us out of this. And they made a change. Right now, with that, and thing that I always like to point out there, just to highlight how much almost stayed the same, ownership wanted AK to keep Jim Boylen on as the head coach. So just keep that in mind, right? But throughout the most losing that the Bulls have done, the baddest that they looked like as a franchise, even throughout the billboards and the attendance dropping, the Bulls still wanted Jim Boylen to stay on as head coach and only changed their front office because Pax had the awareness enough to realize, hey, I'm probably not going to be able to get us up out of this, right? Now, Pax also had the safety net that he knew that the Reinsdorfs would keep him on payroll to a certain extent, which he has been this whole entire time, still listed as a senior advisor on the Chicago Bulls official staff. But it did show something, right? So that's something that I think that we have to look at first in this, is that there has to be accountability. And without that accountability, not to say that, sometimes teams luck in to correcting some of their flaws, but without accountability, it does have to just be luck when it comes down to that. And that's part of the issue here, right? This is the worst losing streak that the Chicago Bulls have been on since 2019-20. That's the first time we've lost 7 consecutive games. And that was that kind of signified, and it was the last time we had major change with this, right? Arturas Karnisovas, Mark Eversley was hired, Billy Donovan would come in as the new head coach, and some actual change happened. Now, unfortunately, that change has led us right now to being right back where we are. The thing that's really concerning about this losing streak is that only 2 of the teams that we lost to had winning records, the Magic and the Warriors. And that should make the Bulls look even harder at what? The other 5 losses came against teams where, like the Pelicans, who just outworked the Bulls. The Hornets and Nets only have 4 wins each. The Pacers, 2 of their 5 wins came against the Chicago Bulls on the season. And then you have the Washington Wizards. Bad, right? So what has happened over the last month or so for the Chicago Bulls should be a wake-up call. Will it be? That's what remains to be seen. Now, what are some things that could go, I don't want to say right, but can go in the Bulls' favor? One, the team is getting healthier. There is hope. Will Gottlieb came out and said there is hope, that using this 4 days off, they're going to ramp up, Jalen Smith, Isaac Okoro, Trey Jones, each of the guys that have missed multiple games over the last, couple of weeks. They're hoping to ramp those guys up, right? Isaac Okoro has been out the longest. He's missed 8 straight games as well with a back injury. Smith has been sidelined for 5 games with a hamstring injury, and then Trey Jones has missed 3 games with the ankle sprain, right? So each right now, they're hoping that over the stretch, they're going to ramp back up, and maybe, 2 or maybe all 3 of those guys are back healthy by the time the Bulls take the court again on Friday, and that's definitely something that can help the Chicago Bulls. Right now, we know that Kevin Huerter was already announced to be out at least a week. That's going to be up by time the Bulls take the court again. So, hopefully you're going to get that. So a chance to get healthier for the Chicago Bulls. For those, Bulls fans that have been in the comments saying, well, I personally think it's just health, right? Because there are some people that think it's just health. Okay, cool. That hopefully is going to be eliminated now coming out of this break where they're going to be ramping those players up to get them ready to take the court back, right? So chance to get healthier does mean something to this team, right? Also, a chance to have some meaningful practice time. Billy Donovan has talked about it. Mike Dangholt has talked about it. Rick Carlisle has talked about it. A lot of coaches have talked about it, is that you don't get a lot of time to practice. I think sometimes we think that these teams are getting a lot of time to practice and work on things. When you're traveling and all this stuff, teams are lucky to get a shoot around in, right? Like that's really, they're getting more shoot arounds in than straight up practices to kind of work and reinvigorate something. Then when you look at the start of the season, the fact that training camp is really only a week, right? Then you have a couple of weeks of preseason though, but you're still not necessarily getting that full practice. So teams are really installing new things really in the week. Now, I don't say that to give the Bulls an excuse, because every NBA team is dealing with the same thing, and you have to find a way to correct your issues and get the ship righted. So the Bulls don't get a caveat because of that, because it's something every team in the NBA has dealt with. Yes, the Bulls have had a tough schedule at the beginning. They were one of the most traveled teams, and things do settle down for this team, more so here over the next month or so, but then it picks right back up in mid-January, right, as far as the toughness. So, using this to kind of get some actual practices in, work on some things, redefine some things, maybe kind of rediscover your on-the-court chemistry as well. Maybe that's going to help and go in the Bulls' favor, and if it does, great, right? I'm not going to knock that. If the Bulls can use this break to come out of this positively, that's good. Like let's be clear here, right? The Bulls had an easy part of their schedule and got demolished in that easy part. So as it stands right now, there are no easy parts of this schedule at all. Now, of course, the Bulls come back. They have two mini-series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have the Hawks as well, Pelicans over that time. But the Bulls have no easy games. At this point, I'm done labeling any game easy for this Bulls team until they show a level of competition consistently, and we just don't have that yet, right? So it could be that this version of the Bulls team just isn't destined to accomplish anything. And I talked about this a little bit on Locked On Bulls, right? Is that this is, if the Bulls do have a season of struggle, and let's say they do miss the play-in, this is the season that they own their own first-round pick. This is a very deep draft. Even though I think some of the better bigs in this draft are going to go later, but this is an opportunity for the Bulls if they do. All right, cool, right? Like it is what it is there. But when you pair the worst losing streak, when you pair the lack of health, and then you get into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is there may be something seriously going on in the locker room. Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Time, take this for what you will. You guys know how I feel about Joe Cowley. He's real hit or miss. I always do give him his credit, even though I don't like him as a person. I do always give him his credit when he does come out with a good article or a good piece. But he did say this. A source told the Sun-Times on Monday that this is a crucial time for this team because it's starting to splinter. The source went on to say that Coby White, the longest tenured Bull, has been one of the main figures behind the scenes trying to put out the fires, limiting the finger pointing while still holding teammates accountable. That came from Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times, right? Now, we also did get a comment from Billy Donovan as well, with the conversation with the media, that he said that the group will not pull itself out of the mud until they go from liking each other to loving each other. Now, that was a question that raised a little bit of eyes because, this team was connected. Like there was a whole, video that was posted to the Bulls social media last year, with Trey Jones and after those guys had been there for a little while, over how close this team felt. And even the fact that the media feels like they have to ask if this team is close anymore, I think is an indication of that. We were talking in the Discord, right? And one of the things that was brought up was the fact that you never had to ask during even the Baby Bulls era, but definitely during the Derrick Rose era, if that team liked each other, if they were connected. You never really had to ask that. Now, it did start to splinter a little bit towards the end there, with Jimmy and things like that. But like that era, you never had to ask if that team was connected. You saw it on the court. You never had to ask who the leader was. You saw it on the court. Like Derrick Rose may have been the heartbeat of that team, but Joakim Noah was the leader of that team, and he wouldn't allow certain things we don't have a guy like that on this roster, right? So to hear that the team may be starting to splinter some due to the adversity or whatever else is going on, I think that's loud. Right now, I don't think personally it's due to any contract situations. I don't think anybody's looking at it like, oh, I got to go get my money because Josh got paid. Now, maybe there's a little bit of unsettledness about the future, right? Because you got to keep in mind, when we got Kevin Huerter, when we got Zach Collins, even when we got Trey Jones, these guys were all kind of looked at as, not to say like wasted goods or tainted goods, but a little bit of the luster have wore off those guys where people didn't really believe in them as much, right? And then they come in, they play pretty well. Kevin Huerter, I know, is shooting the ball like absolute shit, but this has been one of Kevin Huerter's most impactful seasons in everywhere from passing to the defense at times, right? He's shooting the ball like absolute hell, like from three-point range specifically. Like this is continuing. He's been 3 straight years of his three-point percentage going down, but he's found a way to be impactful. We know that Trey Jones has found a way to be impactful for this team, right? So those things are all now showing themselves, and hopefully that if there are starting to splinter in that locker room, they can use this time to reconnect, use this time to refocus themselves, because it is easy to lose focus. When you're dealing with injuries, you have, you're uncertain about your future, what's going on with the contracts, all those type of things. It can wear. And I remember like last year, or was it the year before, where Nikola Vucevic talked about the trade rumors kind of getting to the team and bothering the team, and the media really killed him for that, right? But I think these players are human. But at the end of the day, you're getting paid millions of dollars to go out there and play basketball. Focus and play basketball, right? So I think that the Bulls are a really good example on why leadership matters on a team, because that's how you deal with adversity, especially veteran leadership. And our veteran leader is Vooch. And we've already talked about maybe the right message, but sometimes the wrong messenger, because Vooch is playing like ass himself, and he's never really been a good defensive player at all. So if you're going to call out defense, that's going to be a problem, right? And for a lot of people as well, that they're starting to look at this team and saying, hey, this is where a lack of star power also makes a hit on your team. You could be right on that one as well, right? When you look at an offense that was once ranked at the top of the league in assist percentage, right? We've failed to have more than 24 assists in the past 5 games. The team that really shot an effective field goal shooting percentage, we've dropped every week there, right? And we're now 3rd worst over the last 5 games as well in the NBA as far as field goal shooting percentage. The defense, we knew the defense wasn't going to be great, but we came into this season with a pretty solid defense, right? I didn't expect it to stay top 5 or anything like that, and now have dropped to number 29 defensively in the league, right? So this is a problem for the Bulls, and the problems we all know about. It's a list of them, but until your team is connected, until your team shows effort, until your team show fight, it's really difficult to come out of that and to fix the low effort problem with the Chicago Bulls. So we'll see what happens. The last 5 games should be a wake-up call for this team as far as performance level and everything that's needed if you really want to get out of this. And this is where you really see about your team. But the thing that the Bulls also have to figure out now is who is expendable. That is what, when AK said he was evaluating for long-term fit, we talk about no skipping steps, right? You have to understand. So the Bulls have 7 players on expiring contracts: Nikola Vucevic, Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, Javon Carter, Dalen Terry, right? Those are your 7 players that are on expiring contracts. The 2 biggest decisions are Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu, right? Coby White, the team's leading scorer per that. He's been that. He's going to be that probably for the entirety of this year. He is talented when it comes to getting buckets. He's not shooting the best from 3, right? He's only played, 7, 8 games this season so far, and missing games with injuries to both calves. And so now you're going into a season where reportedly he was hoping to get a $30 million contract, but it looks like that probably is not going to be there, which could help the Bulls retain him, because the number of calf injuries, if you do play career low in games, like Coby White could legitimately play 65 games this season, right? And maybe even less than that. That's going to hurt you when it gets to going to the negotiating table. But Again, that's a major decision that the Bulls have to. Ayo Dosunmu has been one of Billy Donovan's best and favorite weapons literally since he's been here, right? He's averaging career highs, 15 points per game on 52% shooting from the field, 48% shooting from three, and 86% shooting from the three-point line. He is one of the most dangerous players on this team at attacking the rim, a two-way player. And based on the first 23 games, he is probably going to be probably get the biggest deal, not named Coby White, and maybe even could contend with that depending on what they want to, right? And then you look at Nikola Vucevic. It's time for Vooch to go. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about Vooch anymore. Vooch's time for the Chicago Bulls needs to end. There was a period of time where and let me be clear, I still do see a world in which AK and Eversley could extend him instead of trading him to try to trade him in the offseason. But I don't even want to see that happen anymore. I don't even want to see Nikola Vucevic on my bench anymore, unfortunately. It's time for Vooch to be gone. Boo, bitch, be gone. Like, it's time for that, right? Now, and there are also arguments that could be made for keeping Kevin Huerter and Zach Collins, depending on what moves you make other places. But at the same time, you can't keep everything the same and think things are going to change, right? Of course, you have young players in Montes Buzelis, getting Noah Essengay back next year that you're going to hope is going to change and raise the ceiling of the Bulls a little bit. But if you want to change the makeup of a team, you can't keep bringing everyone back, right? So there has to be some heads that can roll. Javon Carter's probably all but gone. And honestly, I would say in like the 15th guy on your bench, wouldn't necessarily mind Javon Carter staying there. And I know it's crazy for me calling him the ball-headed hoe. But you have to move something. Something has to change for this team, right? And so the Bulls have to evaluate how much of a fire sale are they really going to have at the trade deadline. So the Chicago Bulls need change. That's what we need. It's time for change for that. And then it's time to, to then try to start building and constructing the roster that just fits and finally start getting some of the things you're lacking. More defensive players, ideally 3-and-D players, right? Of course, that defensive big that has eluded us for years. These are things that we absolutely need on this team. And so, we'll see. And now if the Bulls are healthy coming out of this little bit of a mini break that they're getting here, that gives you all the rest of December, January, leading into that February 5th trade deadline to make a change. So get healthy first, and then make your evaluations that you still need to make. And now it's time to start actually making changes that affect the growth and direction of the Chicago Bulls team, in my personal opinion, right? We've heard that the core is viewed as Coby, Giddey, Modest, Noah Essengay, Ayo Dosunmu. That's what the rumors have been, right? Even if you do view that, and that's your core, all right, cool, you've identified that. Now, I look at what that core, even if that's your core, if that is, identify what they're missing. Go out there and try to find ways to get it. We have to stop straddling the line. This team has hovered around mediocrity for far too long. You have to actually show an ability and a desire to go out there and solve those things. And that's where a lot of us have doubts when it comes to AK and Eversley and their ability to go after that and get it and play tough with that. So we'll see what the Bulls do. We'll see what the way they can get to, what they can accomplish. And let's hope that the Chicago Bulls actually take this wake-up call seriously and then dive into this and now use this, get healthy, use that to evaluate, and then let's start making some moves because this team needs some things, and some of that is out there. You look at and listen to some of these trade rumors, it's out there to get. The Bulls just got to show a level of aggression about going out there and getting it, and let's see if we can do that. With that said, we do got a voicemail that I want to get into, man. This one is from my Uncle Mingo.
Hey, what's up, nephew? This Mingo. Just want to drop you a line, let you know I'm still out here listening, but I'm just like everybody else, just disgusted. So I'm still listening to every show. I'm going to always be in your corner. But check it. I always got to come from left field. I got 3 topics, man, why the Bulls will never be shit until you get 2 out of the 3. Just hear me out. Either you need a superstar or all-star, one or the other. Last time we had an all-star I think it was Zach. And that pretty much was because it was played in Chicago. Zach was a good player, though. But you know how it is. If the game is in your town, sure shit, somebody from that city team going to be an all-star. 2, you need a shoe contract. How's the NBA going to sell you? You need a shoe contract. They got to market you somehow. And last, nationally televised commercials. Taco Bell, Mountain Dew Dorito. We know Chicago players. We love Ayo. I think Dalen Terry got a great personality. Be a good guy for commercials. But On a losing team, nah. So you know how it is, man. If you're not on a nationally televised commercial, I look at it and say the person in Idaho don't know who the fuck you is. Only we know who you are. So if you get two of those three things, man, think we moving in the right direction. So just let me know what you think. I'll holler at your nephew.
What a team needs to be successful. Now, I do agree, you need an all-star or superstar. I think you need a player to ascend to that level, or you have to go out and acquire one. I think the Bulls going out and acquiring a star or superstar is slim, so you're hoping for some of those players to develop into that, right? And we'll see. Now, as far as the need for shoe contracts and nationally televised commercials, I think that comes via winning, right? I think that comes via the NBA recognizing. Look, for example, we saw over the offseason, Modest Buzelis was in that. Like, he was in the Lyrical Lemonade with Will Smith. He was in another commercial. I can't remember somebody else. Like, they have put Modest in some places and in some ads for the NBA leading into this. Now, that's fallen off for the season because the Bulls haven't been playing well. But I think that some of those other two things you mentioned, they come with being successful. So be successful, right? And I think you need to build a well-constructed team. You need to have players that it's not as simple as just going out there and getting a star because you feel you need one, right? You either have to build something attractive enough that a star can come, or you have to develop a star, or you have to be bad enough to draft one, or get lucky enough to draft one in the draft, right? And that's going to be the part where the Bulls have to play their part in that as well. So we'll see what comes down with it. I hope that the Bulls can get this shit together, man. Overall, we all deserve more. We all deserve better. And at this point, I don't know when or if this team is going to give us that anytime soon, but we do deserve better as Bulls fans, and we deserve better as a city. And let's see if the Bulls can go out there and get it, man. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Even when this team is testing every ounce of patience that we have, you guys still come here to Chicago Bulls Central and support. I appreciate that more than you guys know. The next few weeks will shape the future of this franchise, whether they realize it or not. And you know that we are going to be covering every possible angle here at Chicago Bulls Central, as only we can do. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, drop your thoughts, as always, down below. Who stays, who goes, how are you evaluating this team? Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.